And for the longest time, I've always known that there is a need to sort of implement change through politics if you want to implement change at scale. The party's campaign strategy is very clear. I think we're going to try and recreate our success in the Lok Sabha elections, where we had the highest strike rate of any party. When people came out onto the streets to protest about the horrific sort of sexual assault of a 4-year-old child and the sort of sexual violation of another young child in Badlapur, the government said that these are politically motivated protests. This is a government that has lost the plot. It is a shameful day in our state that in the last 25 years, regardless of what party was in power, we have not had to make women's safety a political issue. If you cannot respect the Aradhya Daivat of Maharashtra, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, if you cannot ensure quality construction in a statue that is inaugurated by the Prime Minister
on
a fort, what expectations can you have about the quality of construction anywhere else in the state?
Hi Anish. First of all, congratulations. You have been appointed as a national spokesperson of NCP Sharad Pawar group. So we would like to know about how did you join this party and your educational background also. What led you to enter politics?
You know, I've been in politics for the last 10 years. I've been working on election campaigns, helping out individuals here in South Mumbai, across Maharashtra. And for the longest time, I've always known that there is a need to sort of implement change through politics if you want to implement change at scale. After a point, if you want to actually bring about a difference, politics and government is the only way to do it in a way that touches millions of lives, not just a few or a few hundred. So I think the decision to work in politics was always quite clear. The decision to enter politics, I think, was made after the 2024 national elections, because I think the mood of the country has shifted. We've witnessed a reinvigorated opposition, and I think right now is the time where we're crafting a new political imagination.
Right.
And for that, young people need to be in politics, because what we do today is going to define how our country looks for the next century.
Right. So do you have any political background, any of your family members?
No, my father is an income tax consultant, and everyone else in the family is very confused as to what I'm doing in politics. They've been very confused from the very beginning. And much like a lot of people in Mumbai, you know, politics is a very distant thing for most of us.
Right.
That it's something that others do and we sort of participate in. And it's been a sort of exciting journey that they've also been witness to, where they're excited to see the steps I'm taking.
If I'm not wrong, your father or your grandfather was a revolutionary. He has done several. He fought for the workers of Mumbai.
Yes, so he was part of the freedom struggle and was part of the Quit India movement, and then helped Babasaheb Ambedkar with the drafting of the constitution. And he was also someone who participated in the Sanyukta Maharashtra movement,
Right.
and was working very closely with Yashwantrao Chavan, who's now the mentor of the party
Right.
I'm now in. And I think he passed away long before I was born. So I never got to meet him, but I only knew him through his words. And I think that's been a sort of constant source of inspiration to give back.
Right.
And he gave back as an academic. He was principal of Government Law College and the vice chancellor of Mumbai University.
Right.
And I think I'm making that additional step, taking the academic background that I have and jumping headfirst into politics.
Great. So talking about academic background, where have you studied about your education?
So I studied here in Mumbai. I was at Greenlawn School Worli till my 10th standard, and then at the Cathedral and John Connon School right next door over here till the 12th.
Right.
And then after that I went to Columbia University in New York.
In New York.
Where you have also studied.
Yes.
So we are fellow Columbia alums here. And I studied comparative literature over there. So I was working on Senegalese linguistic politics in the 1960s and Francophone West Africa, and very detached from whatever was happening here, but always involved. And after that, I came back to work on the 2019 elections a few days after I graduated in 2018 to work on Ashok Chavan and Milind Devra's campaign.
Right.
And we ended those campaigns on a less optimistic note than one would have assumed. It didn't end very well for us then. And I headed off to the UK to Oxford on the Rhodes Scholarship to study intellectual history and public policy.
Great.
And then after those degrees, I moved to Delhi 2 years ago and set up base there, working a lot on Pink List India, which is the organization that I still run, which works on LGBTQ plus rights and politics, and also writing a fair bit and being more politically involved in the lead up to the 2024 elections.
So talking about the political campaigns, what is your strategy for the upcoming Maharashtra elections?
We've got a month and a half left for the Maharashtra elections, and I think the campaign has already begun full swing. The party's campaign strategy is very clear. I think we're going to try and recreate our success in the Lok Sabha elections, where we had the highest strike rate of any party,
Right.
winning 8 out of the 10 seats that we contested. We want to ensure the focus remains on agrarian distress, on inflation, on corruption, on unemployment, and on the issues that matter to the people. There's a Shiva Swarajya Yatra that has been taken out by the party. I was a part of it for a few days, led by Amol Kolhe, who's our MP from Shirur, and Jayant Patilji, who's our state president. It's been joined in by Supriya Tai and other senior leaders along the way, and it's covered already 4 districts and will cover several more. For me personally, I think the question to ask in this election is, how do we create an ideological narrative to counter the Mahayuti Sarkar in Maharashtra?
Right.
How do you recenter the conversation around the ideological corruption that is set into the state? How do you restore the values upon which the state was founded, the values of Shiv Shahu Phule Ambedkar, the progressive values upon which the state was sort of created and the state was sort of built, right? I think for too long we've seen a government that does not care about civic liberties. We've seen a government that does not care about the right to dissent. We've seen a government that does not care about the fundamental values that make up the sort of constitutional fabric of this country.
Right.
And that, I think, has gotten to the people of the state. And you've seen that more recently when people came out onto the streets to protest about the horrific sort of sexual assault of a 4-year-old child and the sort of sexual violation of another young child in Badlapur. And the government said that these are politically motivated protests. This is a government that has lost the plot. It's a government that does not understand the pulse of the people of Maharashtra. And it's a government that thinks that being in power allows it to do whatever it wants. And so I think the ideological counter to that, which is restoring a government that is accountable to the people of the state,
Right.
is the key issue for this election.
So talking about the fundamental rights, having a right to protest, having a right to dissent is also the fundamental rights we have, and the High Court did not allow the Maharashtra Bandh, which was called by the MBA on the account of the Badlapur assault. So what do you have to say on that?
Babasaheb has already said that this is an admittedly unconstitutional decision. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled before that a Maharashtra Bandh or any sort of bandh should not be allowed for political reasons. And the cause of that was a lot of bandhs that were taking place that were politically motivated. But I think we have to relook that conversation today, right? What do you do when a government refuses to listen to the people of the state? What do you do when people have to be forced to go and organize a rail roko to get the government to even acknowledge their demands? The government says, oh, this rail roko is bad. Of course, no public property should be damaged.
Right.
But when you have an insensitive, callous government that does not listen unless it is forced to listen, what option do even political parties have? And I think in contrast, the Badlapur agitation was one that was spontaneous, led by people.
Right.
And I've often said that if you wanted to put a political tone on it, we're very happy to take on that political hue, but we'll do it in our own way. We'll come with our flags, and that's what we wanted to do on the Maharashtra Bandh. We'll be accountable for the actions of the Bandh. We'll ensure that public property is not damaged. But we will also ensure that the people of the state will show a mirror to the government to show them that they cannot continue doing what they're doing. So I think the court needs to relook this, because at a time when the government refuses to engage, at a time when the government turns a sort of blind eye towards everything that's happening in the state, we need to have a larger conversation about how do you protest? How do you get the government to listen? And the Maharashtra Bandh was one way of doing it. I think you'll have the other way of doing it, which is the Maharashtra elections that is coming up in a few months, and the people will answer through the ballot box. And the government will realize that they can't silence people all the time.
Right. So is it about the culture of Maharashtra, the democratic values the state had and now it is missing?
It's absolutely, can you imagine in Maharashtra, you have women's safety becoming a political issue. It is a shameful day in our state that in the last 25 years, regardless of what party was in power, we have not had to make women's safety a political issue.
Right.
We have not had to make it something that is a partisan issue. We have not had to make it something that needs to be such a high priority that it needs to be addressed at the scale at which it's being addressed right now. In the last 10 years, crimes against women have doubled. Crimes against children have tripled. This is the state that we are left in Maharashtra. a state that prides itself on being safe. On the Shiva Swaraj Yatra, the Ladki Bahin scheme was announced and women were like, you're giving us 1,500 rupees, we'll give you 2,000 rupees but keep our streets safe. It's not just about Badlapur, it's about rural Maharashtra, it's about urban Maharashtra, it's about the streets of our cities, it's about the sort of highways that are not safe anymore. This is a major problem, and it is a problem that requires a political resolution, but also a lack. It requires political will, of which there is an absolute lack today. You cannot have a government that ignores these questions.
Right.
And when it starts ignoring these questions, it sort of betrays the mandate given to it by the people, but also the political culture of the state. We've never had to sort of make this a political partisan issue, that I accuse a government of not doing enough on such cases. It's always been a sort of moment where parties come together and say that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. But when the government refuses to address the problem, when the government refuses to set up the Sakhi Savitri committees in schools, which it announced like it announces everything 2 years ago but never implemented, when the government does not engage with the opposition or even with the parents of the child, then you have to be forced to do things that shake the government's conscience and remind it what state it's in power in.
Recently, it was expected the election commission would announce the results of Maharashtra along with Haryana. But the reasons given by them that they do not have enough security forces, they need it for Jammu Kashmir elections. So what do you think? Is there any political influence or interference to delay elections?
You know, I've worked in Kashmir for almost a decade now.
Okay.
The first thing I'll say is that this is a complete admission of the government's own failure. If you need additional security forces to hold elections in Kashmir, a state that you claimed would be completely secure after the abrogation of Article 370, which happened 5 years ago, then you have failed. You have failed on national security. You made national security your primary plank and you failed on that plank, and you're now using national security as an excuse to delay elections in other parts of the state. Now the second point is, Haryana and Maharashtra have gone to elections together for as far back as any of us can remember.
Right.
This has been something that the election commission has stuck to. It's one of the sort of standard operating procedures of elections in the country. Now suddenly, you have Maharashtra going to polls later, polls that have not even been announced, and Haryana going to polls earlier. The irony is, Haryana is now demanding that we should postpone the elections, and who is demanding that in Haryana? The BJP.
Okay.
You know, you've gotten a situation where I don't even want to call this politically motivated. I want to call it politically incompetent. This government does not know what it's doing. It's completely confused. I wish it were politically motivated, but given the results of the Lok Sabha elections, it doesn't seem like they're even good at being the sort of political strategists that we once assumed they were. They're just incompetent at governance.
In Jammu Kashmir, they released the first candidate list yesterday.
And then
When
changed it in 5
They
minutes.
scrapped it and again issued a 15 candidate list. So the BJP workers were protested. Some of them are not happy with the names being skipped. What do you have to say?
They're a party with a difference, na? This is what we're seeing. They're different from every other political party because no other political party is in such chaos. I think the results of the 2024 elections have been a wake-up call. I think in more ways than one.
Right.
On the surface, this government has tried to pretend that it's business as usual. They've retained their ministers. They've kept the sort of government going as they thought it was going before the Lok Sabha election results. But underneath, there is absolute chaos. You're seeing that chaos in Maharashtra, where the three sort of heads of government, one chief minister and two deputy chief ministers, say something different. You're seeing that at the central level, where the government sort of announces something, but something else is implemented. And you're seeing it at the party level, where no decisions can be made because there is now active dissent within the party.
How do you plan to counter BJP in today's world? Like how digital media is the main platform. How do you see it?
You know, digital media is the main platform, but I'll tell you the one learning lesson from this election, which is that in the Lok Sabha elections, you saw that back to the basics, old school campaigning still has massive value.
On ground talking with
On ground activation. You have to know the pulse of the people. Troll armies sitting out of IT cell centers are not going to win people elections. They'll make you feel good about yourself, but they won't solve the problems on the ground. And that's precisely where we want to counter them. This election, we're employing incredibly innovative strategies. We have nukkad nataks and sort of street plays taking place at rallies across the state, right? With the Shiv Swarajya Yatra right now, you had a sort of humorous skit showcasing the failures of this government, showcasing how one person is running the show while another person is the face and the third person is being left out.
You're going to the basics.
You're going back to the basics, and that's what works, and that's what will work in the Vidhan Sabha elections, and you'll see the results very soon.
So talking about the three heads we have in the state now, do you feel that Ajit Pawar group is being sidelined compared to Devendra Fadnavis and Eknath Shinde party?
You know, I think unfortunately the question is, what is the status of this government, right? Sometimes it's a triple engine government. Sometimes it's a double engine government. When the Ladki Bahin scheme is being announced, all three parties are sharing a stage. When the Lakhpati Didi scheme is being announced, only two parties are sharing the stage, with the Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis meeting Prime Minister Modi. So I think first the Mahayuti must clarify, are they in a Yuti or not? And if they are in a Yuti, what is their strategy for the elections? And if they are putting a united face, then what is the way in which that united face is going to promise development and governance for Maharashtra? You see sort of different notes coming out of this government with regard to the Waqf bill,
Right.
where the sort of Ajit Pawar faction of the NCP says something different to its alliance partners. You see different sort of attitudes to what happened in Badlapur, with the Ajit Pawar faction being entirely silent on the issue. You're seeing a complete breakdown of coalition mechanics in play right now. And I think that is the reality of the state today. And the sidelining of one party versus the other is a direct result of that breakdown of coalition mechanics. And you'll see the same result that played out in the Lok Sabha elections play out in the Vidhan Sabha elections, where the people will not reimpose faith in a government and a coalition that does not have its own act together.
There are talks that Ajit Pawar might again shift to the original party.
It's the question. If I was at the liberty to answer, then I would be doing far.
But there are meetings going on. Anything you would like to contribute on that?
Pawar Sahib has categorically maintained that the decision as to who is led back into the party will be left up to party workers.
Okay.
And only those who benefit the party more than the party benefits them will be allowed back into the party. That applies to Karyakartas, that applies to former ministers and MLAs, that applies to everybody. The door is open, as it always is in politics, but the decision on whether to come back will obviously be taken by the party leadership and the party workers, and it will be dependent upon whether or not they are willing to work to strengthen the party. I think the party has now demonstrated that despite the symbol being taken away, despite the name being taken away, despite a new symbol being allotted just 1 year before the Lok Sabha elections, we can get an 80% strike rate in Maharashtra. This is unprecedented.
New symbol, not 1 year, I guess, 1 month.
1 month ago, but the process had sort of started a little earlier. But you were thrown into the deep end of the pool and you managed to come out victorious. So I think the party is in a very strong place right now. We're fighting the elections unitedly with the Mahavikas Aghadi, and if people want to come back before the elections, their entry will be decided by the party leadership. Already, I mean, half the Pimpri Chinchwad leadership of the other faction has switched over to our side. We've had almost 8 ex-MLAs, MPs and MLCs coming into our party from across Marathwada. This is a massive sort of show of strength that is demonstrated by continuing faith in the party leadership led by Pawar sir, and the fact that the people of Maharashtra are rejecting the coalition.
Exactly.
So I think the decision to come back is obviously up to others. Whether or not they admit it into the party will be for all of us to wait and watch and see.
Is it because none of the NCP Ajit Pawar group got any minister positions in the cabinet? The cabinet has not been expanded lately. Is there a dissent within the group?
I mean, they have their own explanations for what has happened. But I want to recenter that conversation, right? If you claim to be a party that is upholding the legacy of the NCP,
Right.
this cannot be the basis upon which you stay in an alliance or quit an alliance. There has to be some ideological integrity left in this country. People are not happy with what is happening today. People are not happy with the fact that If you get a ministerial berth, you'll stay with the alliance. If you don't get a ministerial berth, you'll leave the alliance. Politics is about conviction. Politics is about courage. Politics is about going out there even when you're wounded, even when you're sort of left to your own devices, and proving that you have the spirit and the conviction to fight. If you can't do that, then there's no point.
Baramati is the political bastion of NCP, and we saw Pawar versus Pawar fight in the Lok Sabha. Now there are talks that Yugendra Pawar might be fielded, and Ajit Pawar has already clarified that he is not interested to field.
Well, he said he might not be interested. So I think the decision on that is still left up to the party and his parliamentary board, which I think is charged with making that decision after it decided.
So, are there
unwisely.
chances that Jai Pawar and Yugendra Pawar might have direct?
We're still in early stages of seat distribution and
Right.
seat allocation. I think that's a decision that will be taken by the party after considering winnability amongst other factors. You'll know as soon as I find out who the candidate is, and I'll be sure to
I
let
think
you
the
know
next generation
immediately.
has to now come into the force, and that can also be an approach for the party. New face, fresh face, next generation.
You've already seen a lot of fresh faces inducted into the party. Jayant Patil Sahib has constantly said that almost 70% of the tickets allocated to candidates for the upcoming elections will be given to fresh faces. What has happened is, in a strange way, the sort of split in the party has allowed Nishthavan Karyakartas, or sort of dedicated party workers, and Jayant Patil Sahib led the Nishthavan Karyakarta Meyavas across the state not too long ago, to find their own footing and find their own voice. And you're going to see that being rewarded. And so you're seeing young people and fresh faces across the party. It's not just within the family. You're seeing
Right.
somebody like me given an opportunity to be national spokesperson despite not coming from a political party, from a political family.
Right.
So I think across the board, the party is rejuvenated, the party is reinvigorated, and there are a lot of young faces and new faces that are coming into the sort of political arena with the party, and you'll see the sort of results of that in the upcoming Vidhan Sabha elections.
About the current government, it is called as a inauguration government.
Yes.
So, what do you have any your views on that?
You know, what we've seen time and again is that the government is more interested in inaugurating projects than constructing them properly.
Right.
2 days ago, a statue of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, inaugurated by none other than the Prime Minister of India, less than 10 months ago, collapsed because of heavy rains
Oh.
in Sindhudurg. If you cannot respect the Aradhya Daivat of Maharashtra, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, if you cannot ensure quality construction in a statue that is inaugurated by the Prime Minister,
On a fort.
On a fort, what expectations can you have about the quality of construction anywhere else in the state? You've seen the coastal road in Mumbai that developed cracks and leakages before it was inaugurated.
In Atal Setu.
The Atal Setu, which had cracks. You've seen the coastal road being inaugurated 4 times already. I've lost track of how many times it's inaugurated, and the people of Mumbai have lost track of when it's open and when it's closed. I had a friend recently tell me we should have an app, coastalroadopenornot.com, because this government has inaugurated projects without having any consideration of whether they actually complete or not, just to cut ribbons before elections. And people of Maharashtra are fed up. This is a government that will cut its own ribbon in November and walk itself out of government because it simply is unfit to govern and incompetent at executing anything. All of the mega infrastructure projects they've spoken about, all of the sort of massive infrastructure spending that they boast about rings hollow when it's not done properly.
On the same statue incident, Deepak Kesarkar just said that we can have a bigger statue at the same site which collapsed, and that can be on the lines of Statue of Liberty.
You know, I wonder what Girish Mahajanji will say, because the two of them keep contradicting each other on national media. So I'm excited to see how the 3 parties respond to the statue incident differently. But this government just makes announcements. Has Deepak Kesarkar ji figured out the budgetary allocation for this new statue? Is it going to come out of the same allocation that's going to the Ladki Bahin scheme? Or is it going to come out of any other allocations that have been taken away because the state is reeling under debt and being fiscally irresponsible unlike ever before? So this government has been making announcements left, right and center. A week ago, on the Badlapur incident, Deepak Kesarkar ji makes an announcement that Vishaka committees will be formed in schools. Deepak Kesarkar ji would like to know that Vishaka committees are already required in schools because they come under the mandate of the Supreme Court judgment as well. He has announced the Sakhi Savitri committees, which are the actual committees that are needed to protect the children, not the staff members, that he announced in 2022 that have not been implemented yet. So this government is very good at making announcements, but they can announce all they want, but they're not going to be in power to implement any of those announcements. So we'll smile at those announcements and say you should have done that better the last time you did it.
About the per capita income, Maharashtra has always been at the top, but from last 2 years it is on the 11th, 13th rank.
Yeah.
And if I'm not wrong, they have not published the recent data on the national website. What do you have to say on that? We are going backwards. We are falling in the rankings.
I mean, as you know, this is a government that does not believe in data. We've not had a census being conducted in almost a decade now. We've not had any updated figures on how many people need ration cards, what is the allocation that needs to be done on public distribution systems, on what the sort of medical care facilities need to be built into the state, what the sort of priorities are for the upkeep and upliftment of the citizens of this country. So a government that does not believe in data is a government that you should not expect data from. So I've given up on expecting data from the government. But unfortunately, the grim reality is that even if you don't publish the data on the government website, the people of Maharashtra are living that data. We have an MBBS Sarkar, Mahagai, Berozgari, Bhrashtachar Sarkar, that is conducting its affairs in such a transparent manner that the people of Maharashtra are seeing the consequence of their actions every single day. So they don't need to publish the per capita income because the farmers of Maharashtra know that their income has fallen. The women of Maharashtra know the cost of LPG cylinders has increased even when they're promising 3 free cylinders. The people of Maharashtra know the sort of hikes in school fees and college fees that have taken place over the last 10 years that have left people in sort of crippling debt for affording their own children's education. So the per capita income figures don't need to go on the website. Let them keep hiding this data because they can't hide election results. At least those are published on the Election Commission website right now.
Many Ladki Bahin beneficiaries, the women have said that they thank the government for the money, but they are said while voting we will think in a different way.
You know, of course, you think you can buy the votes of people of Maharashtra for 1,500 rupees. Firstly, you must really think very lowly of the people of Maharashtra. One, because 1,500 rupees is not enough to buy a vote. Two, because the people of Maharashtra cannot be bought. So it's a joke if the government thinks that they can buy votes for 1,500 rupees, and people will obviously tell them that we are getting what we are owed. Is the BJP taking this money out of their own bank account and giving it to the people of Maharashtra? No. It's taxpayer money going back to the people of Maharashtra. They are not doing any favors. You know, this language of doing a favor unto the people, of being a benefactor, needs to go. There's no upkar being done here. There's no ehsan. The government is here to serve the people and they've forgotten that. And the people of Maharashtra will remind them of this when they go to the polling booths. That's what the women of Maharashtra were saying. That's what the members of this government don't understand, because their MLAs go and say that if you don't vote for us, we'll stop this scheme and we'll take your money back. What guts do these people have to make statements like these on national television as if it's their own money? If you make statements like these, if you pretend like you are a king and not a politician who's elected to serve, then the people of Maharashtra will give you a response in the same coin.
The fiscal deficit of the state has been rising, and after the Ladki Bahin Yojana, we have added to the fiscal deficit. So it is said that if this government comes into power again, they might discontinue the scheme.
No. So I think the Mahavikas Aghadi has been clear that in governance is about continuity. You have to respect decisions that have been made by previous governments, and you have to ensure that there is continuity in governance. The scheme will continue.
Okay.
It will be reformed and sort of reformulated to ensure that it's done in a better framework than currently executed. Jayant Patil Sahib has also said this, that he's been finance minister before and he studied the scheme and said there's a better way of implementing this and we will do this in a better manner. And we'll do this without taking money away from the social justice ministry and from the Adivasi welfare department and from the sort of minorities welfare department, which has currently happened. So the scheme will continue. The question is of the fiscal deficit. Now this year, the Maharashtra government's supplementary demands to the budget were 20% of the budget amount. Supplementary demands are meant to be for things you forgot to put in. You forgot to put in 20% of your budgetary demands in the budget that you presented, and presented as a supplementary demand that could not be debated or discussed. This is fiscal irresponsibility. You cannot do this in the most sort of industrialized state in the country, in the economic powerhouse of the country. This is something that has not been allowed before. This is the sort of Fiscal Responsibility Act that was brought in by Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. This is an act that has been followed by other governments that have followed. This is an act that we have respected to bring down the fiscal deficit because it is about the economic well-being of the country. It's not about BJP or Congress or NCP or Shiv Sena. It's about maintaining a sort of framework within which the country's economy can prosper, grow and flourish. They've completely thrown that into the dustbin. It requires economic reform. It requires level-headed policy making. It requires a change in government.
The government says that Maharashtra is the biggest state where the foreign investments are coming recently, at the top of foreign
It's
investments.
always been the biggest state where foreign investments come.
But recently we see major industries being shifted to Gujarat. So are we falling behind in new factories, industries coming up?
I don't like making these comparisons. I know that this has been part of the political discourse of the state for a while, and we've seen a lot of industries moving to Gujarat, and I think that's unfortunate, and you're seeing the sort of repercussions of that politically. But I think the bigger question to ask is, why is there such limited political imagination on behalf of the central government? You want to only announce large-scale schemes like Gift City. You want to sort of announce bullet train projects. You don't have the sort of basic governance understanding to say that you already have projects like these that exist. Why are you not expanding Hinjewadi, which is an IT district in Pune, and ensuring that it can become a sort of rejuvenated IT center? Why are you not ensuring that Mumbai, South Mumbai, can become the financial hub of this country? Why are you not ensuring that BKC, which already has financial institutions cropping up left, right and center, can be supported in sort of expanding its scope and becoming something that does not compete with Hyderabad or Chennai or Ahmedabad or Delhi, but with Dubai and Singapore? You have a limited imagination of this government. They can't think beyond petty politics. They can't think beyond, oh, this state is better or this state is worse, or our city did better or our city did worse. They don't have a vision for the country. And that's what's going to come to bite them. I don't care about projects going to Gujarat. I care about more projects coming to Maharashtra. When you make it a sort of either or, you're doing a disservice to the people of the state. And you're going to face the consequences because, one, it's not going to be efficient. You're already seeing that a lot of companies are moving away from Surat to come back here. You're seeing that sort of from the Bharat Diamond Boss, major sort of companies that went from Mumbai to Surat are coming back to Mumbai. You've not created the infrastructure there to actually make it a feasible place to do business. So you're wasting taxpayer money, you're wasting business money, and you're wasting the people's time. So instead of announcing these schemes and announcing large-scale projects, if they can focus and get back to the basics, that will be preferred.
So talking about elections, do you have a CM face of the Mahavikas Aghadi?
The Mahavikas Aghadi has been very clear that the party that gets the most number of seats will be the one that stakes claim to the CM's post. There have been sort of differing opinions, which I support because they've come out into the open and these are active conversations within the party. Uddhav Thackeray ji has said that a CM face should be announced, and he is of the opinion that announcing a CM face will actually be beneficial for the alliance.
Right.
It's a suggestion that's being taken very seriously by the top leadership of the party. It's a suggestion that will be discussed and debated in seat sharing negotiations and in sort of strategic negotiations in the days to come. But I want to reverse the question and ask the Mahayuti, do they have a CM face for the elections? You have the Chief Minister who says that I am the presumptive CM face, and the Shiv Sena, Eknath Shinde, which says that the CM is the presumptive CM face for their alliance. This is met with no responses or angry responses from the BJP, which says that Devendra Fadnavis ji should be the CM face for the alliance. At the same time, you have posters cropping up in Pune when the Ladki Bahin distribution scheme is going on, calling Ajit Pawar ji the Bhavi Mukhyamantri of the state.
Right.
So in fact, there is an open posterbazi war going on the other side about who's going to be the CM face. Whereas on our side, I think that's an active conversation. Personally, I think we've got to acknowledge that we live in a parliamentary democracy where we elect our MLAs and the MLAs elect our chief minister. Unfortunately, with Prime Minister Modi's campaign strategy and rhetoric, we've grown used to this idea of face for the election.
Right.
But we are not electing a chief minister, we're not electing a prime minister. We're electing parties and candidates, and we're electing ideologies and policy platforms. And I think that's important to remember. The chief minister is the first amongst equals. He is going to be the one who is going to ensure that the cabinet is going to take decisions that are beneficial to the state. On this side, we have more competent people, we have more experienced people, and we have more committed people who will be great ministers, who will be great administrators, regardless of who the chief minister is. On their side, they've already shown that they have a sort of cabinet that does not know how to work with each other, and they have a sort of ministry that does not know how to implement effective decisions for the people of Maharashtra.
You must have had your surveys, like out of 288 seats, how many can be?
We don't need
won?
surveys, we have Pawar Sahib. So, Pawar Sahib has said that we'll win 225 seats, the opposition will win 225 seats. I think that's a number that is a respectable number currently. I think Jayant Patil Sahib is on the cautious side, like Supriyata and Amol Dada, who were also cautious for the Lok Sabha elections, and he said 175 to 180. But I think in any case, the numbers will arrive when they arrive. One thing I can tell you for sure, that every survey tells us that we are forming the government in Maharashtra.
So, what is your current campaign strategies and how in coming days you are planning? The MPA and NCP both.
The MVA is now going to have a set of coordinated rallies across the state. You'll see those start very soon. All leaders have already started campaigning across the state from all three parties. You're going to see seat sharing negotiations continue in the coming weeks, and a sort of final decision on seat sharing that will be announced in the weeks to come. And most importantly, you're going to see a unified policy platform that will emerge, that is an alternative to the mess that's been created over the last 10 years. So I think all in all, it's a united front that's being put out. It's every party playing to its strengths, and it's every party supporting each other, like we did in the Lok Sabha elections, to ensure that every single Mahavikas Aghadi candidate has the support of all three parties in every constituency in Maharashtra.
So, Anish, what your role is going to be in the campaign and in coming days?
Now I've just been appointed national spokesperson, so you'll see a lot more on TV, and I hope in conversations with the Free Press Journal on issues.
In Maharashtra?
You'll see a lot more of me between Delhi and Maharashtra and across the state campaigning. And I think what I want to focus on is expanding the party's ideological presence, getting young people across tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 cities who don't know enough about the party's ideology to understand the sort of tradition of Shiv Shahu Phule Ambedkar that our party is built upon, and to craft a progressive vision and a new political imagination, not just for Maharashtra but the country.
So we'll see you back to Mumbai?
You'll see me back in Mumbai very often in the studio, hopefully when we have better things to discuss and not failures of the government, but that seems unlikely, so we'll come and talk further as the days progress.
All the very best for your campaign, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.